Once again today, we're talking with U.S. immigration lawyer and councilman in Englewood, Michael Wildes. Once again, thanks for joining us today on Take 10. In the first half, we were trying to clear up some confusion about the immigration laws here in the United States. How have they changed since 9/11? We spoke about it briefly, but how have they changed?
We see the government trying to create a seamless web or stop the borders from being so porous. If you're Middle Eastern of a certain age and male, it's going to take you an extra 20 days to come on our shores. And we see certain visas stopping in certain consulates. Certainly the government has moved seriously towards removing those that would cause us harm and is yet to try to discern a less bureaucratic shuffle for families that are trying to be reunited. We must always remind ourselves that we were a country formed on the backbone of immigrants, and that those very liberties that we're fighting for should not be violated as we cull out and we vet through a person's credentials. And it's a very difficult balance that faces the government right now in order to protect a person's personal liberties and protect us when you have such crazy people in the world doing crazy things. And we were never more vulnerable than on September 11th, where you could see our most prized monuments, if you would, the Pentagon, the World Trade Center, hurt, touched by foreign entities. And does that mean that we rid ourselves of these entities, or does that mean that we make sure that we won't ever be vulnerable again? And that is the challenge that elected officials, individuals, lawyers, everybody is fighting. And we're still trying to remove those blemishes and those victims of the World Trade Center every day when we practice these cases. Now,
you hold a very unique position where you are defending those who are on the verge of being deported. You're an elected councilman, and you were a prosecutor. So looking at it from all different angles, I mean,
it looks very conflicted.
Yeah.
The challenge for me when I left the government was trying to represent people that I was removing. And I have to tell you that fortunately, because of the kind of practice we have, I was really never faced with that. We represent some of the finest companies. We represent banks, institutions, most wonderful families, CEOs, housekeepers, fine women, men, cooks, chefs. You name it, we represent it. And these are people that are adding to the society. We see unions now rising to the level of helping immigrants because they can see that there are certain factors or parts of our society that need foreign laborers. And ultimately, I don't feel conflicted. I've represented a score of Saudi diplomats who defected, nuclear scientists from Pakistan, people involved in all sorts of atrocities with an eye towards getting them to cultivate intelligence information. And with that in mind, I marched into Capitol Hill in May of 1999, and I said that we were vulnerable. Do something, change it. We have to do it. They didn't.
And now they're changing it.
Thank God. Thank God they're changing it. But the challenge facing the government now is, are we going to wipe out what it is that we're fighting for? And we have to make sure that we calibrate it perfectly so that we have this beautiful melting pot of a society. And that is, something that I see in my practice and something that I see in my political life in Bergen County.
So we're pretty much, the government's kind of walking a tightrope on trying to keep a balance between keeping our values here and building our country on immigrants coming in and adding to our society, and at the same time kind of keeping control of what is going on.
Yeah, and we got to keep an eye on them while they do it.
Now locally, how does it affect you as a city councilman here in Englewood?
Well, you see people at their most vulnerable, and when we just celebrated the one-year anniversary, you see how people have taken this literally to home, and how often, as an elected official, you're called to task, whether it's matters of homeland security, matters of police, and other emergency services. We have to take everything seriously and be prepared. And ultimately, that is the challenge that the leaders of tomorrow will have to learn from the lessons of yesterday.
And now you're on the council, you're working towards, keeping the values going here in the local cities. Will you be continuing that here? Will you be going one way or the other? Or?
Well, if you're asking me in a sneaky way whether or not I'm going to run for higher office, I have great interest in issues of homeland security and giving people that quality of life that we need, that comfort. I also think that it's very important that on a local level, local governments protect its citizens, because most of the federal government energies right now are international. I do believe that the state legislature and ultimately Congress is something that I would be interested in, simply put, because that is the right venue or the source where you can address these issues. But you don't earn those things unless you do a good job where you are, and ultimately the people that are my boss are the residents of the city of Englewood, and those are the people that I answer to.
Okay, Michael Wildes, thanks for joining us today on Take 10 and talking with us about the immigration laws and trying clearing up some things that may be confusing us.
I hope I did.
Thank you for joining us as well. Stay tuned for more Channel 10 News, more sports and weather are coming up next.